This is Professor Homa. I'm going to review creating, running, and saving a query. And a query is nothing more than just an advanced filter that you can save as a database object that can be reused or reopened and reprinted anytime that you need. And I'm just going to do a real simple query from the database. This is the client's agents database that I already have open that we've worked with. And a real simple query will be creating one of all the people that live in a certain city and work in a certain city. So what I'm going to do is, we've worked in our home tab. I'm going to go over to my create tab, and there's a query wizard. We don't need to use a wizard. We can use query design. And I'm going to go to query design, and it kind of takes us into like a design view. But before you do that, you'll get this show table window here, and just select the table that you're going to work with, and we're going to work with clients, and just hit add. And you're going to want to click over here, and it won't let you, so make sure you just close this when you're done. So use that or this to close that up. And this little window here for clients, it just tells you what fields that can show up in your query. It doesn't mean they're just the fields that you're going to use. They could be just the fields you want to show up. So we're going to use client ID, double click on them, first name, last name, city, and office. So we're just choosing those. And down here, the only criteria we're going to use, we'll just put in criteria that they're going to live in Boulder, and we'll type Boulder. This is just like the advanced filter, and they work in Boulder. And you can notice that you can also use an or down here as well. So if you had an or, if they live in Boulder or Colorado Springs, you'd put them both in the same category down here, and I'll do that. And see if I click off that, it puts on my quotes. So what I'm going to do now is run my query. Now I have my criteria. I'm going to run my query. I go over here to see this big red exclamation point, and I'll hit run. And there's my query. There it is. There's 42 in my list that are showing. Now if I want to save this query, sometimes it's hard to know how to save the query. And you may have this window open in a little window that you can right click on. If not, you can go up here, and what I usually do is just hit X. And it'll say, do you want to save it? And I'll hit yes. And then you're going to name it, and I'm going to call it live and work in Boulder, or however you want to name it, and just hit OK. And when you do that, the query is saved over here with the objects. If you look at queries, there you now have a query called live and work in Boulder. Okay, now if we go back to the table, let me just do one more. One more that I'll do an or one, just so you see how to doing that. If I want to find people that live in Sheridan or Colorado Springs. So I'll just run another query under Create, Query Design. I'll do Clients again, and I'll add. Close this up. I'll use Client ID, first name, last name, and I'm only doing living, so I'll just choose City. And under City, I'll just use Sheridan. Now, you have to type this correctly. And under or, I'll just put Colorado Springs. Make sure you type it correctly. So there's Colorado Springs. And if you click off and it has a quotes, it means you probably did it right. So I'm going to do a query based on lives in Sheridan or Colorado Springs. Remember to run this. Just hit the run button. And there it is. In this list, there's 26 people that live in Colorado Springs or Sheridan. And if I go over to this little X over here, I'll close that window. And I'll save this. And I'll call this lives in Sheridan, and I'll just put CS for Colorado Springs, and I'll hit OK. So now in my objects over here, if I wanted to see my queries, now I have two queries. Lives and works in Boulder, there's one. Lives in Sheridan or Colorado Springs, and if I go back to my table, I could just double click on my clients table and go out of that mode. So that's basically doing a query. And again, it's just an advanced filter that you just save. And there's lots of things, criteria you can use, but that was the simple ones we used in our exercise for both the clients and agents and also the MPPA exercise that we did last week, or that we did at the end of the semester. So I'm going to stop there. So that's just working with a query. So hopefully that'll help you through your exercise.